Hi friends, I'm back in the lab today. I've got more spiders to sort out, and I am going to try something a little different today. A slightly different kind of video than my usual. So one of the things I've been feeling about myself is a lot of despair and anguish. It's been a terrible year. I'm sure it's been a terrible year for everybody. Just nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. And so what I have done is I have resolved that I will try to kick myself out of this funk. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to talk about me for a little bit. And in particular, I'm going to say what I think I'm good at. You know, positive affirmations. Like what's his name, Smalley on Saturday Night Live. I've got to say some things to try and make myself feel like, oh, I'm doing good things. This is good work. So what am I going to do? Well, I've got my little collection of spiders here, my little baby spiders that have just hatched out. I've got another clutch I've got to work through. I've got a little collection of vials over here that I'm going to fill up with baby spiders, and I'm just going to sit here and do it. Now, this video is going to be, I realize this is going to be like those videos of guys sitting in their cars monologuing. Only I'm going to be sitting in front of a microscope. So it's the same thing, right? Exactly the same thing. I'll be driving my microscope and having a conversation with strangers on the internet as I do it. All right. So let me get started in here, and as I do it, I will say a few things to people. So, as I said, what I want to do here is explain why I'm in this business and why I think I am an adequate scientist. Oh man, look at all those spiders scurrying. So there's a couple of things that I think make me qualified for all of this. And maybe you'll share some of these things. Maybe you'll think, hey, maybe I could be a scientist too. And hopefully a better scientist than me. That's the dream anyway. So let me try to list some of the things I'm particularly good at. One is patience. Oh man, I am just way too patient for my own good. So, here I am sitting here doing this teeny tiny little, these tiny little motions, these little bits of work that I'll do repetitively, and I can do this for hours. And I think that's an important quality in science. Science is not something where it's a succession of aha moments where you get to jump out of the bathtub shrieking eureka. Now, that just doesn't happen very often. Instead, what it is doing things over and over, trying to get them right, trying to master the skills you need, just plodding away, and then maybe at some moment you'll have a nice aha moment. And you'll have done something exciting. But it really requires a lot of slow, patient work ahead of time. So, I would say I actually cultivated those skills as a kid. I've mentioned before that I used to build model airplanes, which sounds like a hopelessly nerdy thing to do. But honestly, it's one of these things where you have to just sit there patiently whittling away a little piece of balsa wood, making everything fit perfectly. You spend hours and hours doing it, and then hours sanding it. It's like woodworking in general. Patience is a virtue that makes a lot of progress for you. So yeah, that's an important skill to have. If you've got to get everything done right this instant, If you need constant gratification, no, you don't want to go into science. Sorry. You're just going to be disappointed all the time. Now, where this also pays off is in teaching. Yeah, I think I am a very patient teacher. I hope my students think so too. I don't get angry in the classroom. Somebody makes a mistake, it's okay. We'll fix it. We'll think some more about this. We'll try and puzzle out what's going wrong. And that again, you don't expect instant results in the classroom either. It takes time for students to master things. So yeah, patience helps out there too. Some people have also noted that when I'm confronting creationists, I exhibit a great deal of equanimity, and I take my time, and I am willing to sit there and talk and argue for long periods of time. Sometimes it feels like a waste of time, but yes, I have spent many long conversations for hours with people who probably don't deserve it. But that's how you make progress, right? Punching people in the face and yelling at them does not get them to change their minds. So that's another thing I think I'm mostly good at. Although I got to tell you, sometimes a little face punching feels like, yeah, this would be warranted. Not very productive, but you gotta feel it sometimes. Okay, so that's one skill is patience. What else am I good at? I know this is not something that shows up very often, but I also like to think I'm really good with my hands. Yeah. Not that that ever got me dates, but I mean, just that in my work, I have spent my life doing a lot of very meticulous single cell work. And so you got to have a fair amount of hand-eye coordination. And this is a different kind of coordination than you might expect from, oh, for instance, video games. Video games, that's all fast twitch stuff. But doing this kind of thing requires basically a watchmaker's skills. Today what I'm doing isn't that challenging. This is more a test of patience than anything else. But a lot of the work I've done, when you get right down to it, you gotta be really careful with your hands, and you gotta be very precise. And it's my one physical attribute I think I'm pretty good at. Not muscular, not athletic, but yeah, hand-eye coordination, careful control, rock steady hands, all that kind of stuff. I think that's something I'm good at. At least I tell myself that. For a long time I was doing things like single cell work where you have to manipulate individual cells, doing microsurgeries or injecting things, cells that are 10 microns across. And that takes a certain talent, and I think I've got it. What I'm doing today is definitely not single cell work. In a lot of ways, working with baby spiders is easy mode. It's really nice to be able to you can see, I'm working at 6.4x here, so there's nothing particularly highly magnified. Single cell work, I'm typically working at 40 to 50x. With a micro manipulator, and all this other expensive gadgetry. And here I just need my bare hands and a paintbrush. And I'm picking out these cute, wiggly little spiders. They are so adorable. Yeah, so you don't want to squash them. So there is some requirement for careful careful handling. I haven't squashed a single one yet today, and I haven't lost one, and they've all ended up with these nice little vials. See, so I'm doing things right. Okay, let's see what have I got here. So I have cleared out most of this clutch of spiders. There's a few left, and they are hanging out there. They're clinging to, this is an egg sac that was all tangled up with a bit of leaf. And there's some silk floating around here. And some of them don't want to leave home. Let's peel open this. Oh, there we go. Now I'm getting a bunch more. Including one that just crawled right up the forceps. Get out. There he goes. All right, so patience and good fingers. Those are kind of important skills. Another thing that's kind of essential, and I think I possess this as well, is a willingness to embrace the strange and weird. That nothing perturbs you. You know that movie, what is it? Prometheus. There's this absolutely ridiculous scene where this scientist discovers an alien running around. It looks like a cross between a cobra and a vagina. And this has been much derided as totally unrealistic. And the scientist just coos and smiles and rushes up to it and dies horribly. Yeah. Uh, I sort of empathize with that scientist. I mean, I wouldn't be so stupid as to get that close to it. I'd use precautions. But being enthusiastic about an exotic, strange new life form, yeah, that's good training for a biologist. Oh man, this one spider just does not want to get on board the paintbrush train. We'll get him. There we go. So I kind of sympathize with that. And that has been something I have done all my life, is if I see something weird, I want to find out more about it. I want to get closer and play with it. Of course, if it's dangerous, I'm not going to be stupid about it. And so I think that's another attribute for a good scientist. Another thing is I'm one of those people with a total lack of squeam. I am not squeamish about things. I have no problem with blood and guts and messes and fecal matter and insect parts and all that kind of thing. It doesn't perturb me in the slightest. So that's been kind of useful. That's a quality I have. Okay, so that's a quality not everyone would find endearing. But yeah, it's me. And yeah, that was also a childhood thing. I was one of those people who collected roadkill and did amateur dissections in the basement and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, encourage your kids to do that sort of thing. It's good for them. And then also things like, I I worked for a while as an animal surgeon, assistant to an animal surgeon, I should say. This was at the University of Washington when I was an undergraduate, and I was employed to do a lot of the surgical training work. And it's one of those things where initially Oh, I'm just supposed to be there and do the grunt work, do the cleanup, take care of the animals, that sort of thing. My boss, though, was really politically active, and he spent all of his time on the phone fundraising for his organizations. I mean, he was generally a good guy, but you could tell he was not that interested in the day-to-day operation of the lab. And so I ended up taking over a heck of a lot of duties. And a lot of those duties involved animal surgeries. Yeah, that's when I look back at it, I think, that was crazy. Here's this 19-year-old kid, and you're putting him in charge of doing chronic implants in cat brains. But this was also a training facility, so we were training pre-meds, and the pre-meds knew a lot of the general stuff. And so it's mainly me, hey, here, I'll anesthetize the cat for you, I'll prep it, I'll shave its skull, I'll point you to the tools. You get in there with that bone saw and have fun. And then afterwards I do all the post-op prep and care and fun things like that. And no, that did not bother me in the least. Yeah, I operate on everything. Dogs, cats, mice, rabbits. A couple times we had monkeys in there. I had less hands-on to do with monkeys because monkeys are expensive. But still, I was doing all this stuff. And yeah, I could handle it just fine. Except, and this will lead into my next point, except one of the things it did was convince me that I did not want to work on large animals. And by large, I mean cat-sized or thereabouts. I didn't want to work on animals that bleed and that had, emotional responses to the things you were doing to them. And so when I was looking for my graduate work, I said specifically, I was not going to work on cats. I was not going to work on rabbits. I wasn't even going to work on mice. I ended up doing some work on mice later, but it's just, you got to have lines that you draw, and I drew them there. And so it was good in that sense, and I learned what I didn't want to do. Yeah, I'm chasing out little baby spiders now. They thought they were safe in the wreckage of their old egg sac, but now I got them out. Yeah, so the lack of squeamishness meant I was not at all daunted by that work, but I still had ethical reservations about a lot of it. And that was troubling. Yeah. So like I said, I went off to graduate school. I had choices. I could have worked on protozoa, or I could have worked on zebrafish. And since I was interested in nervous systems, I kind of figured, paramecia, they're not going to have much in the way of a nervous system. Although they do have interesting neurological properties. So zebrafish it was. And I went off and worked with those for a couple of years. Okay, while I've been talking, look at there, I filled up one rack. Progress. And I think I've nearly finished up this egg sac. Oh, there's a couple still lingering in there, but they're in hard to get places. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this petri dish and set it aside. I think there's only like a half a dozen baby spiders in here. And I'll just throw some flies in there and we'll let them sort it out. And eventually they'll move away from the old debris of the egg sac, and I'll be able to separate them out more easily. So set those aside for a minute. Okay, so where was I? I was talking about bloody scientific experiments and how they did not daunt me at all. Okay, what do we got here? So I'm pulling out another egg sac. And there's a mama spider associated with this one. She looks a little sluggish. Let's see what I can do about her. Sometimes the spiders are just exhausted, especially this time of year. And this one. Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. The problem here is I've actually got 2 egg sacs in here, and one is hatched out and the other has not. And mama spider loves her babies and does not wish to leave them. So now I have to coax her. Come on. They'll be fine. I'll take care of them. There we go. There it goes, scurrying up the paintbrush. Scurrying over my hand. There you go. Right into my trap. Okay. There's one mama spider. Let's set her aside. So do I have one? Yeah, I got another one here. So 2 mama spiders sitting over there. An egg sac sitting here. I've got some baby spiders here to deal with. So let me just all scoop them out into this petri dish. Okay, so what I was saying is, yeah, I was totally inured to all kinds of animal surgeries. And these were not surgeries for the benefit of the animals, they were the surgeries for the benefit of science. Yeah, we'd like to say that at least. And I resolved I was not going to do that in the future. So that's where I am now, working with zebrafish and then working with spiders. Because here's another attribute that I consider really important for a biologist at least. And that is, to steal Barbara McClintock's phrase, a feeling for the organism. You know, these are not just passive blobs that you work with. This is not physics. Although, I don't know, maybe physicists get really attached to meteors or something. I don't know. But biologists have to work with these things that have a lot of complexity, are not bound by simple, straightforward rules, that exhibit a lot of variation, and that exhibit behaviors that you can empathize with. So, yeah, you know, when I was working with zebrafish, one of the things I really wanted to get into, but it was hard because we lacked a lot of the genetic variation that we do in wild populations. One of the things I was really interested in was behavior and how different fish, despite 100 years of inbreeding, showed very different behaviors. Oh, come on. So like this spider here is being very recalcitrant. Sometimes they're so obliging and sometimes they're not. Anyway, so I was interested in how fish behavior varied. Some fish, you could tell they were timid and cautious and terrified, and didn't want anything to do with people, even nice people who were coming along and feeding them. And others would race to the surface of the tank as soon as they saw you coming because they knew food was on the way. So, you know, it's just simple, stupid little things like that that you begin to feel, oh, these animals have feelings and thoughts and perceptions, and they probably have instinctive behaviors, and they have behaviors they learned, and that's kind of cool. So I was interested in that aspect of zebrafish, although most of my career, I will admit, most of my career was involved with taking little baby zebrafish apart, trying to figure out what's going on inside their teeny tiny little brains with 100,000 neurons. And that involved sectioning them up, taking them apart, looking all over in there. Okay, this may not take as long because I see we don't have as many baby spiders in this clutch. I want more, but okay, I'll take whatever I can get. So yeah, you got to have a feeling for the organism. You got to really be into puzzling out what these animals do and how they work, and um, what makes them happy and interested, and what don't they like. And that's what I always found fascinating. Okay, so we need to know what they liked, what they felt, what they were thinking about, how they were thinking with those teeny tiny little brains. And let me tell you, you learn to appreciate that even the simplest organisms can engage in complex behaviors, do fun things like complex sensory processing, and you don't need that many neurons to do it. Most of what we got in our hands is excessive, I think. At least for the human values of living and loving and taking care of yourself and hunting and all that kind of stuff. We could get by with less brain power. We'd be fine. We just need all these messy, complicated. Oh, come on, spider! All these messy, complicated brains for things like writing poetry. Yeah, no, there's a challenge to the mind. I don't think spiders could write much poetry. I'm sure it would be interesting. Oh yeah, I got this spider and he just rappelled right down on his drag line. Come on. Okay. I'm losing patience. Oh no, no, I'll be fine. It's all fun. Come back. Come back. Okay, there's fewer baby spiders here, but they're making me work more. See what I mean by differences in spider behavior? I don't know why these spiders are so recalcitrant compared to the last batch, but there they are. Okay, so I think that's part of being an ethical scientist is that you can't unfeelingly treat your subject organism. You gotta care about them, and part of that also leads to developing a passion for the organism. Some of you may have noticed that in the last few years, since I started studying spiders, I've gotten a little bit, just a tiny little bit, obsessive about them. And that's because that's an aspect of the same thing. You start to notice these things and you realize that these beautiful, magnificent creatures are all around you and you want to know more. And then you discover that there's all these different species and they're all living in the same neighborhood. Why? What are they doing? Ooh, come back here. What makes them tick? That's what I want to know. And then you also discover they live in different environments. It's like you're making a whole sociological study when you start getting into spider communities in your neighborhood. So that's been part of it. It's just you got to get really into what you're studying. I couldn't imagine doing this if I didn't happen to really love my organisms. So that's part of it. And when you love something, sometimes you get exasperated with them because they will not cooperate. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, he tried to escape, and he just dropped his drag line and went right into my test tube for me, so that was convenient. So that's what we're up to here, is exploring cool animals or plants if that's your thing, and just trying to work out their secrets. And it's all done with an attitude of love and respect, I would hope. Yeah, I think if you lost that, you wouldn't be a good scientist. You'd be a technician, following orders, doing the stuff that somebody who really cares wants to do. Okay, I have freed all the loose spiders here. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this mess. So spiders, when they lay their eggs, are also, they make these nice egg sacs, but they also make these hugely messy little nests to protect them. So this one has 2 egg sacs in it, and one looks older than the other. Oh yeah, let's just peel these apart. Come on. So what I'm looking for is, if it's an old egg sac, it will have a hole in it where the spiders cut their way out and emerged. And usually they'll also have multiple holes because multiple spiders all just sort of scramble to get out of there. And what I got here is one egg sac that is absolutely pristine. It looks really good and has no holes in it. And then there's another one over here. It's all tangled up in this leaf that the egg sacs were glued to. And it looks kind of old and wrinkly and baggy. Oh yeah, there's a hole. I see a hole in it. I'm gonna open it up just in case. Yeah. So what we got here is we got 2 egg sacs, and one of them hatched out at some unknown time and produced a few babies. It may be that I got this egg sac too late, and some of them had already escaped and are living in my house now. Which, remember, because I have a feeling for the organism, I greatly appreciate, and I'm happy that they are living there. And then we got this second egg sac that it's not yet its time. This is the one that the mama spider was hovering over. So we're still working on that one. So I'm going to do a little preliminary work here and clear out some of this debris so that I don't have to deal with it when it hatches out. I hope it does. So I'll just clean up here. So what did I say about fine motor skills and all that? Yeah, I'm carefully separating out sticky strands of silk from a rather fragile membranous egg sac. And so far I'm not squashing anything good for me. Okay, then we peel it apart. I am, by the way, using watchmaker forceps. A really common tool here. If you ask me what I work with most of the time, it's microscopes, watchmaker forceps, paintbrushes, and spiders, little baby spiders. Yeah. So in the future, what I'm hoping to do, what I'm planning to do, once I get a larger colony that's producing egg sacs reliably, is I would, for instance, pull out this egg sac at this time, no matter what developmental stage the babies inside were at, and peel it open so we can make observations of embryos. But I don't want to do that here because I am still trying to expand my colony. So I don't want to risk losing anyone. Yeah, so there, I've separated it out. Let's see. Where are my kin wipes? I don't know. I'm sure they're around somewhere. Okay, well, I'll just pull this out and set it to the side. Yeah, so big ugly mess of spider debris. We'll just set that aside. Put this right there. I'm tempted to say I should maybe put the mama spider back in there with it, because they care about that sort of thing. No, she looks pretty placid and happy now, so I will leave her alone and not disturb her anymore, except to throw some flies at her. Okay, that's probably enough of me talking about myself, right? So that's kind of where I think I am. That I have a certain set of skills that have prepared me for this particular job that I've got, and those skills are good for research and teaching, and have also been really helpful in outreach and combating creationists, actually just arguing with creationists. So that's my list of virtues. I should probably have a corresponding list of my flaws, but like I said, my goal right now is I gotta get myself out of this horrible funk I'm in. That uh, I'm just worn out by the pandemic and the incompetence of the American public and all that kind of good stuff. So I've been feeling less than great about everything. So yeah, my positive affirmations are over. I will let you go, and I'll just play my list of patrons. My patrons are very helpful as well to know that there's a number of people who appreciate my work and are willing to read my stuff and listen to me babble and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you very much to my patrons, and thank you for listening. Yeah, we'll see. Do you want more? Do you want more of these chats in front of a microscope? It's got to be better than listening to some guy with a camera on the dashboard of his car ranting about politics, right? I hope. Okay, talk to y'all later. Thanks for listening.